that we will act as your pillar. But the support is mixed with concern due to the chaos that has broken out in this country, which shares a border with the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Today they are talking about thousands of refugees, and we hope that they are not crossing borders armed with weapons.
The risk of the crisis destabilizing the region is of international concern. The United Nations Secretary General urged UN Security Council members to approve the deployment of 11,820 peacekeeping soldiers to the Central African Republic. If it passes, it will take at least 6 months to prepare for such a deployment.
Authorities in China have intensified their search for suspects in the weekend knife attack at the train station. 3 new suspects have been picked up by Chinese police. And U.S. President Barack Obama has urged Israel to make tough decisions in order to find peace with the Palestinians. Mr. Obama made these remarks while meeting with the visiting Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We have details of those stories and others in this new roundup.
Were arrested after the killing spree that took place last Saturday at a train station in southwest China. In the attack, 29 people were stabbed to death, 143 others were wounded, including 20 who remain in critical condition. The authorities are blaming this terrorist act on Muslim separatists from China's Uyghur minority, who say they are victims of Beijing's repressive policies. The act was qualified by the press as the Chinese September 11. In Venezuela, confrontations on the sidelines of a student demonstration against the government. A group of radicals blocked a road in an upmarket neighborhood in Caracas before attacking the police, who retaliated with tear gas. 17 people were wounded. For a month now, thousands of students backed by the opposition have been demonstrating against President Maduro's regime. Opposition leaders announced plans for more street demonstrations this weekend. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was received at the White House by U.S. President Barack Obama. At the heart of their discussions, Iran and the Middle East peace process. Barack Obama warned Netanyahu that Israel needs to make some tough decisions in order to find peace with the Palestinians. The Israeli Prime Minister insisted that Palestinians had not done their part for peace. In a couple of weeks, the U.S. President will be receiving Mahmoud Abbas. There had never been so many billionaires in the world, according to the annual list released by Forbes magazine, and the richest among them is Bill Gates. The co-founder of Microsoft is back at the top of the list with 55 billion euros, beating out Carlos Slim of Mexico with 52 billion. The biggest winner, though, is the creator of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. His fortune more than doubled in 1 year, from 10 billion to 21 billion euros. And for the first time, there's an African in the first 25, the Nigerian Aliko Dangote, who built his fortune in the cement and oil industries.
Tensions remain high in the Crimea as Russian soldiers and Ukrainian troops were reported to have been involved in a confrontation at one of the military bases. Meantime, the Russian President Vladimir Putin says the West is to blame for the crisis in Ukraine. Putin says Moscow is not trying to make Crimea part of Russia. Rather, the presence of Russian troops in Ukraine is drawing sharp criticism from Western leaders. Many are wondering what President Vladimir Putin might be thinking. CNN's Brian Todd takes a look at the possible motives behind Moscow's military maneuvers.
On the scene as his army rehearses for war. The world is hanging on scenes like this, wondering what could be next. What's inside Vladimir Putin's mind? German Chancellor Angela Merkel offered her own chilling assessment. After speaking with Putin in recent days, Merkel said she wasn't sure he was in touch with reality, according to the New York Times. She reportedly said he was, quote, in another world.
He really believes, President Putin, that somehow Crimea is in danger from what the Russians call fascists and terrorists who are in Kiev. This means maybe he isn't as well briefed on the real situation as he could be.
Others believe Putin's very much in touch with the reality he sees. The upheaval in Ukraine, they say, is a threat to his goal of reasserting Russia's power in places it used to dominate.
Putin wants to restore the Russian Empire, which Ukraine is the crown crown jewel.
And Crimea, with its historic ties to Russia, is the shining core of that crown jewel, a region crucial, analysts say, for two reasons: to Putin's goal of uniting the Slavic people who were once under Soviet control, and for strategic access to the Black Sea. Critics say what also drives the former KGB colonel is an open resentment over the way the Cold War ended.
He's famously noted for saying in 2005 that the greatest geopolitical tragedy of the 20th century was the fall of the Soviet Union.
Putin's been trying to grab that global influence back ever since then, analysts say, and sees America and its allies as a threat to that.
To the degree that I think he is paranoid, it is that he sees the West as out to do in Russia. Whether it's Libya or Syria or Iran or Ukraine, he sees Western actions as uniquely attempting to undermine Russian power.
But Putin could also be feeling emboldened in Ukraine, emboldened from his rival's recent failure to strike in Syria.
Mr. Putin basically thinks that President Obama and the Americans and the Europeans are kind of wimps, and that he can roll them when he sees fit.
Between that bravado and his alleged paranoia, there's now a real fear over just how far Vladimir Putin will take all this. Will he be the ruthless, emboldened commander who pushes further west into Ukraine and possibly ignites a war? Or will he simply park his forces in Crimea and stay there, satisfied with the frightening statement he's just made? Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
We now take a second break. Well, time now to join the Central Focus Office for the day's weather outlook.
The source assures us of a continuous flow, and from there, everything follows. And for those of us who know what the River Gambia stands for, understanding its sustainability in all aspects of life is easily confirmed. The River Gambia provides nutritious delicacies as food, while it provides its wildlife a balanced ecosystem. This river, as a sanctuary, is committed to its inhabitants' needs without season. And as you travel along, all these values are replicated in one company, Elton. Just like the River Gambia, leads in its commitment to values that matter most. Elton, championing the vision for a new generation.
And before we take leave of you, a quick reminder of the headlines. Health Minister Omar Sy and aides have gone out across the countryside to assess the state of health facilities in the Gambia. More than 40,000 people and communities in the lower and central river regions are set to benefit from a $5.5 million water project. Make love decision in order to make peace with Palestinians, President Barack Obama has told visiting Israel Prime Minister to make painful concessions to help in ironing out differences with Palestinians.